Come
All
one,
right.
come all. We're now presiding.
We're going to the mall. Oh, wait. No, okay.
Honorable judges Zach and Alec are here to preside over this case.
The case of one Evan
One Evan
Hansen.
Hansen. And the question of the day is Evan Hansen a bad person? And we're joined together to talk about that. Now, if
Well, I
you,
think I think people are basically evil, so yes.
I think people are
Case
inherently evil.
closed.
So,
So yes. Case closed. No, obviously we're going to get into it more than that.
so if you had not seen our previous discussion on Dear Evan Hansen, we did almost an hour-long review of the movie adaptation. At least that's basically where this is branched off from, and we're hopefully going to do more like this in the future, where we kind of revisit some things we reviewed previously and do something fun with them. It's not always going to be something like this. It could be like a little tier list, a fun ranking, or anything like that. But we thought it'd be interesting because there was kind of a question in our minds at the end of the review last time. Is Evan Hansen a bad person? I think I asked that question, and your view at the time was yes, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, does that view still stand? Would you argue Evan Hansen is a bad person?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It has not
I gotta
it
tell
has
you,
not wavered.
I rewatched Dear Evan Hansen, and I am here to vouch for my man Evan Hansen. He's not a bad person. He's not, and I feel the evidence
so
supports my claim.
he's a victim. Is that what we're going for here? Is
I'm
he just
not.
a sad
All I have
victim
to
of his
prove is that he's
depression?
not a bad person. I'm not saying
He's
he's.
just he's a sad victim of his depression, and therefore he should be held responsible for his actions because he was just real sad. And
I don't think he's being held
bad.
responsible. Here's my argument would be that none of the things he did were in malice, and that's like a bad person. I think inherently would do things with the intent to bring harm. I think from the jump he got swooped into something accidentally, and then he expressed immediately that he wanted to get out of it, but his social anxiety and issues he had prevented him from doing so in the moment. However silly that might seem to us, and then it just got carried out of hand.
No, that part is understandable. That's like the most understandable part of the movie.
It got out of hand, but I had to note that every time it got out of hand more, it was not like something. It didn't seem like he was doing anything with poor intentions. It seemed everything that was like.
I don't claim that he was, because the movie is very, very clear in framing that he's just a poor boy. He's just a sweet boy, and he just wants a dad, and he just wants a mother that is there for him, that cares about him and is present for him, or whatever. And it's like, yeah, sure. That doesn't make any of what he did okay, and intent or not, you can have all the good. I mean, what's the saying? The way to hell is paved with good intentions, right? His intent may not have been malicious. Like, all of it was to a positive net benefit for him, and that's why he's a bad person, is because he's an incredibly selfish individual. It's all about him. It's all about better for him, more convenient for him. And yes, I think that, like, I can understand a story, exploring those aspects of people. But the problem with the framing of the story is that it never adequately punishes him or adequately criticizes what he's doing, almost for the reason that you're arguing that he's not a bad person. Because, he's doing it because he's not doing it to hurt anyone. And it's like, okay, that doesn't make it right.
He got his comeuppance in the end. He make no mistake
he
about it.
didn't.
He was not in a good position at the end. Everybody hated him.
Did everyone hate him?
He posted the video publicly. He was sitting by himself, alone again at the end, where he had started everything. He was sitting alone again at the lunch table. Everybody was staring at him like he was a freak, because that's back where he's at again. I mean, he posted it to the world after his video went viral. Now he's posted this video, so obviously that's gonna have a tremendous backlash. Just like anything on the internet, if you do something like that.
But no one adequately like comes to him and been like, "Hey, what you did, that was like that like really hurt." Like he never really apologizes for it. He kind of does in the video that he sends out or whatever.
He apologized to the family.
Did he apologize? I mean, again, I didn't rewatch the movie, so my details aren't perfect on this. Did he apologize in words fail? I just seem to him remember being like, yeah, I did this, I messed up. But I don't remember him actually being like, yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done any of these things. It was just sort of him crying awkwardly and singing.
I don't know if he said the words
singing and sorry, singing at them,
but it was definitely an apology. I mean,
he's was saying, it an apology?
Nothing I say can take it back or can make it right. But this was his reasoning for it, and obviously, I don't think you get to that point where you're that emotional. And he got to the confession without anyone pressing him to do it
because he got caught. He got to the point where he was emotional because he got caught. If he hadn't got caught, he would have kept doing it. He would have kept doing it until the end of his days, probably.
So the point that the note was posted, once Alana took he sent her a picture of the Dear Evan Hansen suicide note, and she posted it. This was after the point where she was already like, did you really do this? And then this was his response. He was scot-free at that point. But the problem was that it hurt the family. It hurt the Connors family so much that he felt compelled to make that video. He felt compelled because he's not a bad person, right? Because he wasn't gaining anything from it anymore. It wasn't like,
yeah, so he wasn't gaining anything from it anymore. Okay. His ruse was up, more or less. But, he's back into a corner. He can't explain his way out of it.
What do you mean is that he doesn't gain anything from confessing? Like there was no reason. He didn't have to. If he was a bad person, he would have just been like, all right, well, because Zoe still opened the door, let him in when the family was like freaking fighting because of the backlash they were getting from this.
Okay.
So.
I mean, yeah, it's so you can be a bad person and still care about other people. There are people that like, why they're robbing a convenience store. Why? Well, I need to feed my family, and this is the only way I can do. How? They're clearly caring about another person, but is that the right thing to do? Well, I mean, there's a lot of social factors in terms of that too. You could argue, well, there's he's a lower class citizen and he's a minority, and the system has put him in such a place that he can't rise out of where. All those factors aside, that doesn't justify the ends. Don't justify the means. You can care about somebody as much as you want, but like your actions have ramifications for more people than just yourself. And that was him realizing that, which is why he apologized, because he does care about the Murphys, mm-hmm. right? He does clearly care about them, but it's a selfish, twisted kind of thing, which he has to come to terms with, which is why he admits it.
Yeah, but I would argue that he's a good person who did bad things, right? And he's not a bad person who just cares for the people. I would say it's the opposite, where he is a good or at least decent person who just did bad things. And it wasn't like when he went into doing these bad things, it just spiraled from one accident. It wasn't like, I'm going to do this thing intending to get me further or get me ahead or hurt someone else, and then he. But
that is why he does those things. But that's what he did those things. It's couched in a. He's a sad boy, and he's really just wants the love and affection of a family. And it's like, yeah, but what he's doing is still selfish, and it's still messed up. Mm-hmm. Like using someone else's death to his advantage. Using someone's death to get close to the sister he has a crush on. Right. Using the death of somebody to become more, become more popular at school, kind of. Right? He had the big speech, and everyone knows who he is. So, based on everything based on this giant lie that just again spirals out of control. That's the turning of the screw, so to say. But
I think I noted that almost every instance I could see when it was like going more into a lie or spiraling in one other way, it always seemed to be prompted by him feeling bad for like or wanting to make this other person feel better. Like when Zoe was talking about how it was weird that his brother, like they didn't know each other or they weren't close at all, and so then he goes into this whole which is still weird, the whole thing where he's talking about noticing every detail about her and everything. I think that was prompted by wanting to make her feel better about the situation. And then like Alana goes to him about brings the Connor project to him. When she first brings up that idea, he was like hesitant about it at first, but she talks about how she's depressed, and she talks to him about that, and he had no idea. And so after that, he was like, okay, then that kind of is what prompted him to, okay, I'll help you out with this, because it seems like it meant something to her, and the overall message of these people that are out there that are going through the same thing. So that seems like he seems well intentioned in that moment.
God help the outcasts. Oh wait, sorry, that's from a much better movie with a better message and an actually person that you can kind of relate to.
He seems well intentioned in there.
So yeah. So is selfishness not an inherent? Is that not bad? Is selfishness something that's okay?
I think I never would say that anything he did was good. I would say it's bad, but I don't think it was purely motivated by selfishness. I think first of all, he's prompted by wanting to help these people feel better about certain things, and then once he gets that feeling of like, well, it also helps me feel a little more accepted too, as this person who's always been lonely and depressed. Then I think it's like a side effect of that. It's like, it gives me a little, I don't feel so awful at the same time. So I think it's like.
But doesn't that indicate then that the ends justify the means? The lies he's telling the people, well, it makes them feel better, so that makes it okay.
But it's also
isn't that in and of itself? Isn't that in and of itself? Yeah, it might be prompted by him wanting to make someone feel better, but he's still lying. He's still motivated chiefly by selfishness. Like, aside from, yes, he wants to make people feel better, but he's still lying, which still benefits him because he doesn't have to tell the truth about anything. Those are all aspects of his character that we know. His character is motivated, maybe not completely and 100%. He's got layers. I will give him that, but they are very selfish motivations. And as I've said, I don't think the movie does a good enough job of properly critiquing that. Yes, he does end up alone at the end, but like no one. It seems like there's never like it, particularly in something that's this blunt and stupid. I'm a little surprised that no one came up to him and was like, there was never like a big like, you lied to me, and like, I'm sorry, and like his mom never like really scolds him about it, and his friends don't really seem to. It just kind of does a time jump, and it's like, okay, he's still alone, and it's like there's never like a proper like catharsis to the emotions that everyone's feeling. It just sort of like skips ahead and is like, see, everything turned out okay, and it's like but everything they did was wrong, and all of this stuff is still based on a lie, a lot of lies. So like that
might be true, and he might be owed consequences, but I don't think that makes him a bad person. I think
not. Yeah, but okay. Why? But consequences usually consequences for your actions. Sometimes there can be good consequences, but we're talking about aspects of a character who has done pretty much nothing but bad things, primarily motivated by selfishness.
I don't think it's primarily
That
motivated by
that
selfishness. I think it's primarily motivated by helping people. Like every decision he made was like, oh, he sees him feeling bad, and he clearly has an issue with like social interaction, where he's like, okay, let me do the first thing I can do to make this
that
person
doesn't
feel
justify
bad.
being depressed doesn't, or being having social anxiety doesn't make doing terrible things okay.
Uh, well, that's how you end up with bad things happening, but doesn't mean he's he's a bad person though. Like
Okay, how is he
he
a
just
good
has
person?
issues.
How is he? I think we've levied a lot of stuff about how all of the terrible things he has, but I have yet to really be convinced in any way that he's actually a good person, because
He just has to
there's a
not be a
whole
bad person.
no, that doesn't work like that.
He could be an okay. He doesn't have to be a great person.
There is a whole ledger list of terrible things that he does in this film that the movie doesn't properly criticize. Yeah, I mean, I guess to a degree it does sort of. It's not saying that any of them are good by any means, but like it doesn't. Yeah, I've already sort of gone to that. Okay, how is he? How is he a good person? Because you did start with the statement that he's a good person that did bad things. So how is he a good
He's a
person?
good person, or at least a decent person who did bad things.
Decent indicates some semblance of good.
Doesn't
How is he a good
yeah?
person?
He's a good person because he's motivated by wanting. He's motivated by wanting these people to feel good. That's what spurred it all is when he saw that the parents felt bad, and he's like, "Oh well, I guess I will just go to the dinner." And then when the mother was like so desperate for some good story about her son, he's like, "Okay, well if it'll make her feel better, then I guess I'll say it." It's not. There was nothing for him to gain at that point. When he got to the point where he was at the dinner, it's not like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get some status off of this or something," you know. It was all just, how can I make this other person feel better? And he's just not using his judgment better enough, or able to take a step back and be like, okay, let's not do this. So it's just poor judgment, but not motivated by any malicious intent. It's like, this person feels bad. How do I make them feel bad?
It doesn't.
Better in this moment.
To me, actions don't have to be they don't necessarily have to be motivated by malicious or evil intent.
What's a bad person then? If not motivated,
you're looking at two of them right here. Neither of us are inherent. So it does come from a certain philosophical or a certain bent, I guess you could say. But like, I don't think people are inherently good at heart. I come from a position where people are not interested primarily in the sort of the bettering of society for society's sake, the selfless angle. I don't think people are inherently that way. I don't think.
But then you would say everyone is selfish.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how can anyone be a good person if selfish is everyone's motivation? Then everyone's.
I'm not. No. So don't get me wrong. I think there's an aspect called common grace, and it's the aspect that even people who are basically wicked or basically evil or basically sinful or whatever language you want to use for it, the people are still able to do good because of there is an aspect inherent that people do still want to be Evan Hansen in a way. They do want to help people. Like they do. People aren't always all 100% evil, wicked, or else we'd have just live in a society of complete psychotic murderers who just kill and whatever. People aren't like as evil as they could possibly be, but I think their natures are wicked. And again, just because your nature is a certain way doesn't mean that you're not always indulging 100% in that aspect of yourself. Because there is an aspect that is granted per se, that allows good to come from evil, for good to be produced from people who maybe have selfish intentions. And again, this doesn't mean that the ends justify the means. It's just what happens. But that doesn't make anyone who's doing it a good person by any means. So like at the end of the movie, the orchard's still made, and it's so like, okay, there's a nice little the orchard made. It's like it's reopened. I don't know how you close an orchard, but that's reopened, and it's still like a net positive. It's like, okay, that's cool. Common grace is at play, because like all of these terrible things happened, and that still opens. Okay, that doesn't make Evan Hansen a good person. That doesn't make what he did a good thing. Yeah, just because something happened, something good came of his evil, doesn't necessarily make what he did right, is what I'm saying.
I don't feel like we can assume, though, based on his actions, that there was some implicit like selfishness that motivated most of what he did. When it seems like everything he did was in response to making someone feel good, and if you're going to argue that somehow that you can never know if they're actually being or everything.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying everything that we see. Because yes, he wants to make them feel better, and why does he want to make them feel better? Based on what we see in the presentation of the character, why does he want them to feel better?
Why does he want them to feel better?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's literally just he's just a human. He wants them to feel better.
So why does he lie?
Because that's literally the specific circumstance and that he's put in where he feels
every
like
single
that.
time. He can't use an anecdote from his own life that's real.
He's very. I mean, you're gonna say it's not making an excuse for it, but he's restricted in how he interacts with people. That's just he's obviously got poor judgment. Doesn't make him a bad person. I mean, I feel like he's just this like that's all he knows at this point. And he's like he's just digging himself in a deeper hole, but it's never like I really don't. Especially after rewatching it, I don't think he's motivated by like I need to get myself in a better position or this will put me in better graces. It feels like every step is like
right. And again, what I'm saying is that the motivations don't matter really, because when you do a bad thing, you are still doing a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Motivations don't matter when it comes to it in a hard. No, I don't think it does.
If you make a mistake and you're a good or decent person, then
you'll admit to your mistake.
Yes, and he does.
And you do right, but
he does.
Yeah,
that.
When he's backed into a corner,
he wasn't backed into a corner. As I said before,
yes, he was.
He didn't have any reason to tell him at that point. He could have just let them go.
Why not?
About.
The jig was up. The news is out.
No,
they finally found me.
They didn't know. They didn't know. He could have let them go on with that.
He could have been like, no, I didn't send the email. I didn't send it to them, even though they knew it had to have been him that sent it. Like he was the only person that had.
They still welcomed him in, though. That they weren't.
She welcomed him in. She welcomed him in because it was like, yeah, she welcomed him in, even though she was like, this probably isn't a really good time for you to be here.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, maybe it was like, okay, maybe he can diffuse some tension, and instead in their minds, maybe he can diffuse some tension. Maybe he can explain why he did this. Maybe it was a big mistake. Maybe it was an accident. There could be any number of things that he could have helped with in that scenario. And what ended up happening is that he helped by finally telling them the truth.
There's no way that you can convince me that him telling the truth, though, is like he thought that would make him that was just better than keeping the lie going.
How at that point how could he have kept the lie going? Would he
literally could have just said, yeah, I sent her the suicide note for the wellness center, and then they would have been negatively affected by it. But if he was a bad person, he would have been like, well, she's still my girl. I still got more family here.
But the problem was he was seeing the family unit. The problem was that he was seeing the family unit that he had assumed for himself, that he had grafted onto, collapsing in front of him. It was all going downhill. So in order to do what he could to keep the family unit that he had assumed as his own together, he tells them the truth. That's what he's motivated by. It is he probably, if he hadn't had that reaction to it, seeing them all crumble, they probably would have kept the lie going. If they had just been like kind of upset, but like not like all at each other's throats, which they basically were.
Well,
he probably would have.
Well, yeah, because he's a good person. At that point, he's abandoning the family. He's just like, he knows he's not going to be a part of it anymore.
Because he's seeing the again, he wants to keep the family, what he sees as his family, together. He doesn't necessarily know how they're going to react to it. But if he tells the truth, then at least the family that he's grafted onto can stay together in some form. Even if it's without him.
It's without him. It's because he just.
It ends up being without him, yes, because they don't react very well to it. They don't understand why he did it because they don't care. Because they're actually okay people. They're decent people.
What was the song? Words
I would say.
Words fail.
Words fail. Yeah. Words fail. Yeah, where he's like singing at them horrifyingly. It's like lurching forward. This man who's like 30 is.
He's clearly moved to emotions.
Yes, he is. He's very. Yeah.
He's remorseful. No, here's the point where I would like to hear your counter to it.
Okay.
And this is a very cheesy part of the movie for me. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but he does at the end. After everything's said and done, he decides, let me reach out and actually start learning things about Connor. And he reaches out to people who knew about him. He reads up on the stuff that he likes. He starts reading the books that he likes, and he finds a video of him playing the guitar, and he sends it to the family. But we're gonna say it's a selfish motivation again?
No. So, what was I gonna say? Why does he send the video to the friend that hates him? And why did the friend that hates him even watch it?
Oh, the friend.
Yeah. His not really friend. And like, why is his friend like watching it and smiles? It's like, maybe, yeah. And it's like, what does he have to? What is that?
He's the freaking director of the. He's like the social media coordinator of the Connor project.
Was he?
He was like, I forget what the title was, but there
was
like a little moment where
I don't know why he wouldn't have just thrown it in the trash. He's like, I don't care about this. He also was like not really affected by the fact that the lie happened. Really, like, why would he care? Like remember during the montage? Also, he's like upset that like, oh no. Like, I don't care about him at all, but now all of a sudden I'm mad because he's spending time with this girl, and it's like, what?
I know. Well, by the way, he had a bad support system from the beginning with that friend. So
yeah, that friend's
already starting off on the wrong foot.
Character. He is a bad person. That friend is bad.
But tell me, like, he got this video for them, and it was a nice gesture. He sent it back to them, to the family, so they could have it because that's all they wanted was this. Would have
been. An apology letter alongside of it would have been really nice.
He said it though. He vocalized his apology.
Maybe he should have done that. Maybe he should have done this to begin with.
But look, he did it discreetly. He wasn't telling people, "I'm gonna go read the books that Connor likes or get to know him."
Right. That's what I mean. Maybe he should have done that. Maybe he should have done that to begin with. Maybe if he was actually a good. Yeah, if he was actually a good person, he would have started that way.
He ended that way because he's remorseful and he feels bad because he's a good person who did bad things. Because we can make mistakes and it doesn't make us a bad person as long as we acknowledge and address them as such. You know.
I just don't think the story adequately punishes the evil deeds.
I'm not arguing that the story does anything. I'm arguing that Evan Hansen is not a bad person, actually.
Right, but that's my problem, is that because the movie frames it in that way, it frames him as a good person. When it's like, again, bad people can do good things, and he did a good thing. That's nice. He did a good thing at the end. That's great.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think there's any question. I think they really they do show like it was not a good thing to do. I mean, I watched this with my mom this time, and she was like, "Yeah, it was pretty horrible thing he did." I mean, I didn't go into whether she thought he was a bad person, but
right, okay. I'm not sure what that has to do with anything. I've already said that I don't think the movie necessarily says that he's not doing a bad thing, but I don't think it adequately criticizes it because it couches as in this, oh, well, he's doing a bad thing, but he's just misunderstood. And he is really kind of a good, nice person. And it's like,
but he does have issues. It's not like he doesn't have like some things working against him in his environment that might make him susceptible to this and not necessarily be a bad person. It's not like he turned to murder. It's not like
right, but that's also another thing that the movie doesn't adequately really deal with is the idea of social anxiety or depression or anything like that. It's all kind of like weirdly, I almost want to say like weirdly sugarcoats it. Like it doesn't really sugarcoat it, but it tangent-sized like you know how a tangent is just touching one point. It hits the point of the tangent and that's it. It doesn't like tangent off, but it's just the point, and then that doesn't really go any deeper than that. It doesn't dive in or intersect. It just kind of touches on it and then just keeps going along. I don't think it adequately handles the subject material that it's trying to handle well enough. I mean, that's not really part of this argument, really, but I think it's related in the sense that like if you're gonna have a character who's doing these things, I think you need to handle the subject material in a way that makes it so that it's adequately framing him as a genuinely sympathetic character, because it doesn't, and he's not, because I would buy it if it was framing him more as a good person who did bad things in a way that makes it seem like, how am I trying to phrase it? It's like there's like three different things I'm trying to say like at once here, but like I think if the movie grappled more with the morality of it, if it showed him being more torn up about it than he was, maybe that's something that's touched on a little more in the musical. I don't know. But I feel like it would make him more relatable as a person, as a character, as we could see him more as a good person doing bad things if there was more of it that was just like, oh, he's trying to make them feel better. Like if that's the motivation for everything, then I have no choice but to assume that it's still selfish, even though it is, yes, he's trying to make them feel better because he cares about them.
You don't have to make that.
Yes, I do. I do have to. Like I just said, because the movie doesn't adequately grapple with the material, because it doesn't adequately grapple with the morality. I have to, as somebody who's having to fill in the blanks of the morality that's on display, I have to come to the conclusion, based on my own personal biases and ideas of morality, I have to come to the conclusion that it is still primarily motivated by selfishness, because the story doesn't frame it well enough to have its own centralized. It's sort of like, well, morality is relative anyway. So,
well, just because the story didn't frame it well enough, I mean, the story is not the movie is not necessarily on trial here. I think what they give us, though, I'm talking about everything. Everything I said is based on what they've given us. So
he's the central character.
Okay, yeah. I'm talking about the character.
Yes, and I'm dissecting the character on the grounds of the story. The story is the thing that's presenting the character to us. So you have to they kind of go hand in hand.
Yes, but even if you take everything on paper, where you got, I think if you're taking into account whether someone's a bad person, you should take into account all these factors. Whether it's not making an excuse for things, but these are factors that go into someone being a certain way.
It does it does make an excuse for him. It does.
Saying he's lonely, he's depressed, he has a bad friend, he's got social anxiety, and he doesn't seem to have poor intentions with any of the actions he does. I think all those together, you can give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he's not a bad person. I think easily. There's a lot of factors.
I don't give anyone the benefit of the doubt.
You have to give him the benefit of the doubt. If everything he showed, every decision he made, it seemed to be a response to want to make someone feel better. and he just doesn't. He's just not making the best judgment. Doesn't make him a bad person. He's not. It's not. I'm not saying like if you would to do some actual like crime. He's not even. He's not committing a crime. So it's not even like.
So okay,
he's
but
not making victims out of this.
The law doesn't. He doesn't make victims out of it. Well, the entire Murphy family is a victim of his lies.
That's
the whole country
true.
is a victim of his lies, and the whole
That's
social
true,
media is a victim.
He didn't mean to do that. He didn't mean to make.
He didn't mean to do it, but he still did it.
There was a positive, and he had there was also a positive impact on. There was no really negative impact on anybody outside of that. There was, if anything, there was a positive impact on the world from his speech going
from
viral.
A lie, from it. So everything based on a lie, and that's
all based on a lie,
good can come from that. Yeah, but that doesn't make it right, or that doesn't make it morally okay.
But that's not even my argument. My argument is that he.
But that's the whole thing. It's all about morality. That's the whole thing we're talking about.
Yeah, but he didn't do that in a malice with any malicious intent. He did not do that.
You don't
he was
have to have
stumbling
like
on
I've
a
said,
stage up there. And
you don't. Intent is not the question here.
I think it is. If you're a bad person, the intent's pretty clear. If
you don't know, you can be. The way to hell is paved with good intentions.
I wouldn't.
You can have all the good intentions in the world and still be a terrible person by making all of the wrong decisions, which he does throughout the whole movie until the very end, where he makes like kind of a nice little cute thing.
Like, but that's he expressed remorse. He expressed regret for doing these things because of the effects he sees going on people. So I feel like that's enough to show that he is a good.
Maybe okay. So I guess if we say if we take the ending into account, he does learn from his mistakes and he does become a better person because of his mistakes. He learns. So I will grant you at the end of the film, he's become a better person. Maybe not necessarily like a good person, but he's become a more decent person. He knows what he did was wrong. He repents. He has a change of heart and he does something nice for someone else. Without expecting any sort of anything in return, really, because he just sends it to all of his friends. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you that. I don't think him and throughout the rest of the movie is a good person, though.
But just by the nature of like hurting someone by your actions or making mistakes doesn't make you a bad person. I think a bad person is a pretty.
It goes beyond it goes beyond mistakes. He willingly lies.
He's not someone with who's perfectly got everything all together, and he's making these decisions with no other factors weighing in on it. So it's not like me or you doing the same thing. I think it's fair to say it's not equivalent.
He's old enough to know how wrong all of the stuff he's doing.
But
social anxieties or not, like that doesn't excuse the.
That doesn't multiple issues weighing on it, and it was never. And again, it was. I don't see anywhere where there's a selfish intent. I still don't see selfish intent though.
That's not an excuse.
I'm saying
he's old enough to know that
these are factors that caused him to make the decision, and the decision was never based on anything bad. So not only was it a good intention, but the fact that it was a bad mistake has to do with other factors weighing in on it. It's not like he's his full head on his shoulders and he's making this decision because he knows it'll hurt them in the long run.
Right, and I'm not necessarily saying that it's that like, yeah, everyone makes mistakes, obviously, but why do we make mistakes, Zach? It's because we're inherently. It's because we're good, decent people.
Evil?
No.
Well, then,
yeah.
Would you say you are a bad person?
No, I'm definitely not a good person.
Do you have to be a bad person if you're not a good person?
You raising an array. This is more interesting to me. This is a lot more interesting.
That's where I'm at. I don't think he's like. I'm not making an argument one extreme. I'm just making an argument that's not that extreme. I'm saying he's at least decent or a good person, and he's not.
I would. The problem with that, it's actually the problem that I even have with the language with calling somebody like a good person or like a bad person or whatever. But like, there are times where it's like, I sometimes have trouble even with saying like, oh yeah, he's a good person or something like that, because it's like, do I really know everything about them to make that judgment? And it's like, okay, that's maybe I'm getting a little too into the weeds on that, but
that's why I tend to operate on the benefit of the doubt.
sure. So I think in generally speaking terms, I certainly I'm not like I'm not as bad as I could be. I would say as somebody in society, I am a good person in the sense that I am loyal to my friends. I respect my parents. I generally treat people well the way I would want to be treated. But I still have a lot of problems. There's still a lot of problems here.
Yeah, but
I mean, no one knows you better than you. So, sure, weighing all those together, I'm not really a good person. In terms of like general, again, in terms of like general society, I'm not. I'm a good person. I think people will be like, yeah, he's a good guy, or like, yeah, maybe he's a little boring, or maybe he's kind of an asshole, but like, he's a good guy, and it's like, that's fine. I'm a presentable individual to how society generally regards people to be good. I pay my rent. I don't break any laws.
If you're just giving me the option between good or bad person, I can pretty easily say I'm a good person just because I know in my mind that I have good intentions.
Right, I would say you're good. I'd say Zach's a good guy.
Even if
you
take a step back and just look at my actions and you don't know what I'm thinking, that's why I think you should operate on the benefit of the doubt, because I think if you just assume that people are selfish with everything they do, then you could make anyone out to be a bad person with everything. It's like, oh, he's only being nice to that person because he wants to get them on their side. He wants to befriend them and have...
Yeah, obviously you shouldn't... I don't think you should psychoanalyze this with your friends constantly, because you're literally never going to trust anyone for your entire life. I mean, I just don't generally trust people in general. But
so as long as
you don't do that to everyone. But we are talking about a character. He is on trial here after all.
But if you look at things that I've done, and it's like you're gonna say, like I've hurt people with my actions in the past, doesn't mean I meant to hurt them, or wasn't sad about it afterwards. It doesn't make me a bad person because I hurt them, or if I make stupid mistakes. As long as they're not like... As long as you're remorseful enough to them, and you own up to them, and you do your best to make amends, then you've made right to them. You've changed. You've altered your course. You've repented. That is what repent means, to turn around, to change course. Then you're not a bad person. Therefore, Evan Hansen, my man, is not a bad person.
At the end of the movie, I don't disagree with you, but
it's not at the end of the movie. He's always a good person because if he has it in him, if he was a good person,
we wouldn't have had a story. But if he was a good person, he would have done all of those things.
If he wasn't
getting swept up in the original
scenarios,
if he was a bad
person, he wouldn't have felt remorseful and done what he did in the end. That's just what it is. If he was a bad person, he.
What if the character changed? But the character changed, right?
But if you look at the character at the beginning, he's just lonely and sad. He's not bad. He's not a bad person.
He's lonely and sad, but he ain't
lonely
bad.
and sad in the beginning. He's lonely and sad in the end, and he's trying to make the best of it now. That's all. He's got some fire under him now, and he's just sad.
There's no right and wrong. He's just people with good intentions making mistakes.
I think there's a point you can pass where it's like you've gone too far, and then I can't.
Yeah,
it's not like you just made a mistake. If you're like
he hit that repeatedly after the second or third lie. He did that.
But he's not operating in the same capacity as everybody else. There's other factors.
No, okay, yeah, it's okay because society. He's just misunderstood, and society's just had it down in him, so it's okay. He just made some mistakes.
But the only reason he did it was because he thought it would have been good for them. That's right.
I don't agree with
your own argument that as long as you're expressing remorse and repentance for what you've done, then I think he's not a bad person. Just that alone You know, it's not like he killed someone and then he's trying to make up for it, and then it would be a much more harder sell. But this is like he fell into a lie accidentally because he wanted to just make them feel better in the moment, and it just spiraled out of his control. And that's
Okay.
just where it ended up.
I'll cede this to you, but I will come back at least with the argument. Again, only tangentially related, but it is still related, that the film not adequately criticizing or not adequately punishing the stuff that he does make it feel vile and disgusting what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So he maybe he's not such a terrible person, but
look, what would have been
not.
We discussed an alternate ending before, but what would have been a satisfying conclusion otherwise?
Having a more catharsis with the family, other than just like they get real sad, and then we only see her response at the end,
or like enough consequence for him. Not even in the film, even in the film sense, just like as a person, what would be an adequate punishment for what he did, other than ending up alone afterwards and everyone hating him? What more does he need?
I think seeing genuine, like him going to therapy, him like doing stuff with like counseling. Maybe he does take medicine, maybe not. I don't know. It depends on what the thrust of the story is going for. You know, maybe he needs that for it. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
He's still taking medicine. He already was taking medicine in the beginning, like medication.
Except he stopped taking it. Wasn't that the thing? Wasn't that a thing? Or he just stopped taking it? He was like, yeah, I haven't tasted it because I don't like whatever.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he stopped taking it, and it was because he didn't like how it made him feel or something like that. There was an aspect of that in there too, where he wasn't taking his meds.
I don't remember.
There was definitely that. There was definitely a thing of that because his mom like talks to him about it at one point. She's like, "Are you on your medicine?" And he's like, "No." Or so he said there's like a discussion they have about it at one point. Like one of the last before the terrible song where Julianne Moore sings that horrible song at him. The discussion that they like, it's like the last discussion they had before that. It's like she asked him about that, and he says that
he had like a bottle. I guess he just whipped it out. He was freaking out at one point. So he popped open his medication bottle and spilled it all over the place and took one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think more, again, having it more on the him actually like going towards bettering himself rather than just showing, see, he is sad, but like taking genuine steps for himself to make himself a better person, other than just being like, well, he just made some mistakes. And it's like, well, maybe if you show him actually like, other than the active of him making amends with the other people, him making amends with his own issues. Because like you said, he's sort of in the exact same position at the end as he was at the beginning. Having it feel like he really did genuinely learn something for his own good, more than what we saw. Because I just don't think it. There's more you can show. Heck, even in a montage, which they had this is the montage movie. They had nothing but montages in this movie. So, yeah, I think there's a few different things they could have done to show that.
All right.
There could have been a thing where like him like having little conversations with like other people apologizing rather than just apologizing to them. Obviously, they're the ones he wronged the most. Like confronting what's her name and having her like apologize for the Connor Project person, and having him apologize for like, and having him apologize to her for like flaking out and not telling the truth to her sooner, and like making amends to more people than just them too.
You don't think? I felt it was already like a little drawn out at the end, so I feel like there would have been.
Yeah, it was. But like, I don't know. There's ways you can do it.
They would have had to do a montage. They would have had to do a montage.
Yeah, that's right. Another montage. Yeah.
So
I don't
is
know.
Evan Hansen a bad person? No. Is Dear Evan Hansen a bad... Oh, we conceded victory. You conceded victory. Is Dear Evan Hansen a bad movie?
Yes, it's pretty bad.
I actually enjoyed it a little more on rewatch, but still.
Yeah. I'm never rewatching this movie. I never want to see it again. Yeah, I ceded for the sake of the fact that I'm just, we could go around. We were sort of going around in circles already, so I cede for that. We could just go around in circles already.
Selfish motivations.
Yep, selfish motivations. I couldn't win, so I had to. So I ceded my points. I still stand behind everything I said, though.
Yeah. Well, that's it for now. Okay.
Until we bring this up in part 2.
Thanks for joining us in court today. I didn't know if it necessarily would be disagreeing or not. I didn't know what the discussion would be when we got into it. So I don't know if there were more things like this that we could actually debate on. But
yeah, somewhat philosophical.
But we can moral. There's definitely some more at least discussions we can have in this kind of realm based on other movies we've talked about and stuff. I had like some idea of something we could do with West Side Story at one point. I'm not sure. Maybe something with that. But we could look back in our whole catalog of things we reviewed. I'm sure there's stuff we can do. All right, well, thanks for watching. Click the link in the description if you have any input you want to give us on this. Any feedback? And
whose side? Zach versus Alec. Who's you're on? You're probably gonna be on Zach's side because that's the way most people think anyway. Okay. So I just don't.
Preface it by.
I just don't agree
by saying most people are basic in their ways of thinking.
No, I'm just saying that's just generally what how society frames everything. Like, look,
I don't conform to the popular opinion.
Every villain is a misunderstood misanthrope rather than an actual. There's no evil anymore in movies.
I can say Arthur Fleck is a bad person. I don't have a problem saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit the notification bell, and if you enjoyed this video, why not go check out our review of West Side Story. All
yeah,
right.
Don't check out a review of Evan Hansen. Mm-hmm. You already basically saw an expanded discussion.
That in the beginning. Yeah. So if you wanted to watch that.
Yeah, go check West Side Story.
Check out West Side Story. Yeah,
it's good. I watched it again with my family this past weekend, and it was very good.
Good movie.
Yeah.
Maria is there. That's for sure.
I danced with a girl named Maria.
So I've heard.
And I'll never be the same.
Well, thanks for joining us. All right. Court is now adjourned.
Court adjourned.